How do products from your local farmer end up on your plate? What happens to food waste? Can we offer quality food in the fight against food poverty? Integrated urban food policies can answer these questions. And the FoodTrails project is helping cities develop their own to positively impact food systems. From farm to fork. The project operates under the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact and responds to the EU Food 2030 policy. Each partner city is running a living lab to find tangible solutions to specific food issues. From developing food councils to coordinating food aid, from strategic public procurement to food education. In FoodTrails, collaboration is a key ingredient. At the local level, relevant stakeholders are involved in designing solutions. And at project level, researchers and European cities come together to exchange and learn from each other. Create your own recipe for more sustainable, healthy and inclusive urban food policies. Join the FoodTrails momentum.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 6th episode of the FoodTrails Webinar series, Midday Munchies on Urban Food Policies. We're really delighted that you're here with us today to hear from cities and experts about concrete ways and tools for cities to transition to more sustainable food systems. So I want to start off with a few words about the FoodTrails project that you've just seen a little video about. It's a 4-year EU-funded Horizon 2020 project which aims to translate the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact collective commitments to integrating urban food policies into measurable and long-term progress towards sustainable food systems. So the project has been working with 11 European cities and supporting them to implement sustainable, healthy, and inclusive food policies. My name is Madeleine Coste, and I am the head of food policy and projects at Eurocities, which, for those of you who don't know, is the leading network of over 200 major cities across Europe, working together to ensure a good quality of life for all of our citizens. And one of our 7 goals is to support urban food systems, among other topics like mobility and climate and governance. And we are one of the FoodTrails project partners, where our main role has been to foster exchanges and peer learning between cities of the project, all looking to transition to sustainable food systems. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I'll introduce today's speakers. We have Frederike Praasterink, who's a professor of applied sciences future food systems at Haas University in the Netherlands. We have Fiona Konomi, head of epidemiology and environmental health services from the city of Tirana in Albania, and Léa Ravinet, sustainable catering project officer from Grenoble-Alpes Métropole. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So what is the whole webinar series about? Like I mentioned, this is a series of webinars. This is episode 6. We have 8 episodes in total. So after almost 4 full years of the project, the webinar series aims at sharing beyond the project's consortium all of the knowledge and experiences built by the FoodTrails cities and experts. So each webinar aims to promote the replication of solutions and best practices and hopefully inspire some of you to do the same in your city. So the series' past episodes have touched upon different topics like how to implement policies to reduce food waste, or how to leverage public procurement to promote sustainable school meals, or also we had a webinar about what tools can help cities take a more food systems approach and effectively drive change on the ground. So we're going to share in the chat a link where you can have you can see the calendar for all of the episodes. You can sign up to the next 2 episodes, which will take place in the next 2 weeks. And you can also watch all of the recordings of the past webinars, which we will also share in the chat on the FoodTrails YouTube channel. So what will today's discussions be about? It will be about how can cities foster local and quality food production. So I think we've all seen the results of the European elections this weekend, which have many of us very worried. And there are reasons to be worried that we may not see again the same type of ambition that we initially saw in 2020 with the farm to fork strategy coming from the EU institutions. And of course, we will all need to continue advocating for the EU to drive the transition to sustainable food systems by raising the standards on agricultural production, also by setting clear and ambitious targets on healthy diets and on reducing food waste, for example. But also, cities are already playing a huge role in fostering greener, healthier, and more inclusive food systems. And we need more cities to do so. So this is really also the goal of this webinar series, to encourage more cities to take action and to show them how they can do so. So of course, shortening supply chains and working with local producers and providing quality food to their residents is one key way of doing so, which will be the topic of today's discussion. So I'm going to first invite Professor Frederike Praasterink, who will share some of her insights from her research on short supply chains. And then we will leave the floor to Léa Ravinet from Grenoble-Alpes Métropole in France and from Fiona Konomi from the city of Tirana in Albania, both of whom are project partners of FoodTrails. And they will present how they successfully worked to support local food production and consumption of local products. And then just before inviting Frederike to speak, just want to explain that then we will have about 20 minutes for question and answer from the public. So you can already start writing your questions in the Q&A function that is at the bottom of your screen, not the chat, but the Q&A function. And we will also, we would really also like to collect your feedback for the webinar. To understand how interesting and relevant this episode was for you. So we're also now going to share in the chat with you the link to a very short survey that we also invite you to please fill in to help us shape the next webinars. So without further ado, I will invite now Frederike.
Thank you very much, Madeleine, and a pleasure to be here at this webinar. Just to run into the topic of today, the cities fostering local and quality food production, I think there's two important developments that color the challenge of food policies in cities. It's the growing urbanization, please next slide, and the need to transform the food system in order to act within the social and also planetary boundaries. I think this is well known, but just to set the scene about the relevance of cities, today in Europe, about 74% of the population lives in cities, and according to the UN Population Division, that is expected to increase to 84% in 2050. Even in my country, 93% today is already urbanized. So you could say that the Netherlands is actually maybe just a city, a big city. All these people in cities need to be fed, mostly by decreasing number of people living in rural areas, of course, and that gives cities to be a key role in addressing food system challenges such as health and also food security for their own citizens, but also for rural producers that serve them and the global community. So there is a need for concerted policy action at all levels, including the urban. As urbanization increases, people are also increasingly disconnected from their food. Next slide. Although for some groups, also in cities, food insecurity still exists, often connected to social or economic conditions, and of course globally to conflicts and other difficult situations. If you are in a city and look at all the food outlets in cities, one may conclude that in many European countries, feeding the city is not a problem. There is plenty of food available at all street corners almost, mostly safe, often cheap, and that actually is a paradox. Next slide. Because the way we produce and consume our foods leads to severe negative outcomes, actually, related to our health. Next slide. To socio-economic and also ecological impacts. Right, this is why we cannot just optimize current food systems. We also need to work on transforming the food system based on different and other types of principles, not just productivity or profit maximization. Some of the transition pathways that we work on, I'm also working in coalition with other researchers here in the Netherlands, Some of those transition pathways that we work on include eating much more plant-based diets, including plant-based protein, using regenerative agriculture that restores ecological values and reduces emissions of nitrogen, for example, and greenhouse gas emissions, also reducing food waste, promoting circularity, and using true pricing that includes the hidden cost of our food. The core to me of transition to a sustainable food system is shifting the goal of the food system from profit maximization for a relatively small number of shareholders to generating health for people, animals, and the planet for all right holders, reconnecting people to their food. And that, of course, is quite a challenge. Next slide. The interesting thing is it all comes together in cities. While national governments, well, at least here in the Netherlands, mostly focus on agricultural policy, although most of that, of course, is coming from the EU, cities can give priority to food policies. And from what I see, there's a great variety. There's a whole spectrum of urban food policies, from single issue policies, for example, on food waste, to more integrated approaches that address multiple issues. And sometimes food policies, and I think that's very interesting, emerge through involvement of civil society and also grassroots organizations and other actors. So local food initiatives or short supply chains exist at a great diversity in cities. Next. From the research in a research consortium here in the Netherlands that I do, we work on transition to a sustainable food system. We found that, at least here in the Netherlands, and maybe that's also representative for some other countries, I'm not sure, we found that there are actually 3 archetypes of short supply chains, and they're listed here. So the more social-driven initiatives, mainly in cities, for example, community gardens, joint cooking sessions, rooftop gardening, and so on. There's this community farms, very often regeneratively working on regenerative agriculture, like food co-ops, citizens buying local food, platforms, food boxes, and so on. And there's the third one, which is local and regional short supply chain initiatives, very often by individual farmers who see an economic opportunity by delivery directly to consumers or groups of consumers. All of these are important because they reconnect people with their food, also with farmers, and also with nature through their food. So food as a means, more or less. And they often have benefits well beyond food, like agricultural education, social connections, social cohesions in specific areas of the city, and also civil engagement. But the challenge, the challenges that you see are very often lack of visibility. Very often they're scattered around cities, or there are so many that you don't know where to start looking. Also lack of ownership at policy level. Sometimes urban policy members don't know what is over happening in the cities. And very often these activities are disconnected from each other. Also disconnected organizations. Sometimes I put it a little bit bluntly, egos, like very strong initiatives that think they have the solution and should be replicated in different areas, but but serving different purposes in addition. Next slide. I also want to mention high-tech food production, such as these vertical farms. These are here in Venlo in the Netherlands. And my colleagues here at Haas do quite a bit of research on these type of farming systems. And it may also attract new entrepreneurship to cities. Next. You can see there's all these visualizations of how cities can be fed by these vertical farms that can be, placed in, next slide, in, in basements, but also high up in empty buildings, for example, and so on. But there's still a lot of challenges there, but I want to mention it because this attracts new type of farmers, high-tech farmers, and it's also maybe a good way of people's involvement in food production in the city. I want to conclude with this slide. The process of developing integrated urban food policies often actually starts with a sort of assessment of all the food-related challenges faced by the city, and also the whole range of policy levers that the city has to deal with those challenges. In my view, Most urban food policies target actions with 1, 2, or maybe 3 specific goals, such as obesity or addressing food education, for example. But such actions eventually can be incorporated into integrated food policies that may also have benefits in other policy areas, such as employment or economics. In order to do so, next slide, cities require to give direction. This is actually quite it's a general list, but it's very useful when you actually use this as a sort of checklist. Give direction. So have a vision on what it is what problems do you want to solve and what it is that you want to achieve. Support governance, especially to include citizens and also these grassroots initiatives, these different organizations that all work on ways to connect, to produce locally, to have these different types of food objectives on food system challenges. Support the new, for example, through subsidies or giving podia to these initiatives. Phase out the unsustainable. Deliberate decline, it's also called, it's very often lacking, or it's get all the attention without considering what it is that you want to build up, and develop internal capacities, for example, on systems approaches and also inter or transdisciplinary cooperation, because these integrated urban food policies very often require cooperation also with other policy departments within the government, the city government, or within the different governance levels, for example, national or provincial levels. I think eventually transforming food systems is actually not just a task of city. They are contingent to imperatives also at the national and international levels. But cities can lead the way. And the FoodTrails project, I think, can facilitate and is facilitating the collective learning amongst cities from the experience of these cities across Europe, such as through this webinar and the other webinars that have been organized, and can also inspire cities to take action towards integrated urban food policies. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Frederike. That was a very interesting and clear presentation, kind of setting the tone for the rest of the discussions. So now we're going to hear from 2 cities that have been involved in the FoodTrails project from the start. So starting in France, in Grenoble-Alpes Métropole, I will invite now Leah to give her presentation.
Thank you, Madeleine. So yes, I will share with you the experience of Grenoble-Alpes Métropole. So starting from what we are. So Grenoble-Alpes Métropole is a metropole since 2014. Which means that we are a consortium of 49 municipalities, not only one city, but 49. And for those who do not know yet, Grenoble-Alpes Métropole is located in the middle of mountains. So we are surrounded by mountainous areas, which means that we are, the metropole is the main consumer base of the area. With 450,000 inhabitants. So this is important for the next actions. And what is also important is that as a urban area, we have just a few agricultural lands and our food self-sufficiency is very low. So it was estimated about 2%, which is low. Next slide, please. And this is the reason why we had to widen our scope to work with rural territories around rural areas. And for years now, we have been working on a cooperation project with other administrative units, other partners. So this cooperation started in 2015. And 10 years later, we now have around 11 partners. And these 11 partners, they are very diverse. So we have been working all together to work on a scope which is consistent. I mean that we have this large area where agricultural lands are much more important than in the metropole. And we also have a better food self-sufficiency if we consider this bigger area. But we also have to face challenges, of course. One of the main challenges is that we had to define a common vision, a shared vision, to then define a common strategy on how to work on this food and agricultural system. So in 2022, thanks to the funding from the recovery plan, we had the opportunity to launch a foresight study. And this was really important. It was included then in the FoodTrails project also, because this foresight study gave us the opportunity to define what could be the desirable scenario for our food system. So we had to work with the stakeholders from the food system, from the farm to fork. And with these stakeholders, we defined guidelines. These guidelines, they are focused on self-sufficiency, of course. So this is the guidelines where we want to, the objective that we want to achieve. So regarding self-sufficiency, we need to develop fruit, legume production, etc. I won't spend too much time on it because I know the interventions are quite short, but if you need, then we can go more in depth. So yeah, we need to develop food production, but also to maintain this mountainous agriculture, which is mainly mountain stock breeding or cattle breeding. So there is a big challenge about it too. And there are also objectives regarding the shift toward a more plant-based diet. So this is another new objective, which is more a food objective, of course. So this is the common vision that we defined 2 years ago. So next slide, please. This foresight study was included in our interterritorial strategy, which is this, what we call the interterritorial food project, is this big urban-rural cooperation project. So last year at the metropolitan level, but our Metropolitan Council decided to integrate these foresight studies guidelines, to integrate this interterritorial strategy into its own strategy, to make sure that this won't be a urban strategy, but will also integrate other challenges regarding the rural areas around. So this, at the beginning of this year, we finally launched our new metropolitan agriculture and food strategy, which is quite new because we used to have food policy, an agricultural policy, and the food policy is something really new for us. So this was the opportunity. And so now we are in the action plan implementation phase. So next slide, please. So as I told you, we used to work on agriculture for years. This is part of our jurisdiction as a metropole. But what is new and what was really important within the FoodTrails project is that to promote local consumption, local production, sorry, we have to work on local consumption, which means that we have to work on food behaviors to reach this objective regarding diet shifts, for example. So this is part of what we've done within the FoodTrails project. Next slide, please. So within this project, we implemented 2 pilot actions to foster local consumption. One was dedicated to, let's say, to all citizens. This is the Month of Food Transition, which is actually a program of mainstream events occurring each year during the same period. So this is really important for us. This was quite new, and this is something now which is really well implemented by all stakeholders. So this was for all citizens' parts. And we also had a pilot action regarding school canteens, where the objective was to train professionals to make sure they will integrate all the challenges regarding food transition in their day-to-day practices. So this was the second pilot action. of the FoodTrails project, and the two are directly linked with our agriculture policy. Yeah, next slide. Thank you. So we still have remaining challenges, of course. The main one is that there is no food jurisdiction in France for Métropole. So we have to work on this specific topic regarding all the other jurisdictions, so waste, agriculture, sometimes water, on other jurisdictions. And there is also the complexity of the multi-level cooperation, because as I told you, we are working at different level here. So we have to deal with sometimes challenges that might be quite different between rural and urban areas. So yeah, we have to define what are our common objectives. And also the definition of the metropolitan impact-driven strategy regarding behavioral changes, because this topic is quite new for us. So now we have to define what is our strategy. But it is also important for, let's say, behaviors regarding energy, for example. So we have to define our strategy at metropolitan level. And finally, we have to face also challenges regarding the vulnerabilities of our local food system. So, of course, vulnerabilities from the production side, so farmers, but also from the consumer side, so like our NGOs here, which are really important stakeholders regarding behavioral changes. So, yeah, basically, we still have lots of remaining challenges to face, but we've gone. We've developed new pilot actions thanks to FoodTrails. So yeah, this was really important for us. So, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Leah, and thanks also for sharing the challenges, because I think that's also very useful for cities to hear, as they might be at an earlier stage of their own strategy, to know what are challenges that they will also need to address potentially. So now I will invite Fiona from Tirana to also share now her presentation. Fiona, if you unmute yourself and maybe put on your video if possible. We don't hear you. No, it seems there's a sound problem. Maybe you will need to reconnect, Fiona.
Okay.
Maybe now, yes.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it works.
It's a bit slow because I changed computers, so maybe I can take the camera. Maybe the internet is better.
We hear you well.
Okay then. Okay. So AgroPark is one of the implemented FoodTrails projects here in Tirana, and it is located very close to Tirana. Actually, it's not inside the city; it's a bit outside the city, but it's very close to Tirana. It's about 3 or 4 kilometers from Tirana, and it's easily accessible by public transport, but also by private transport. Next slide, please. So Tirana's food trail politics revolved around the city efforts to boost the agriculture sector and to improve the food security and promote sustainable economic growth through initiatives like AgroPark in Tirana. And our key political and economical goals were like enhancing this agriculture product, economic sustainability, food security, and also the consumer access to healthy food. Next slide, please. And one of these examples, it was AgroPark, which was founded on February 15th February 2020 by the Tirana Agriculture Society. And it was inaugurated on May 8 on 2023. So the first objective of creating AgroPark was to offer trading and storage spaces for producers, also for collectors and traders of agriculture products, as well as retail trading spaces for local farmers. The main mission was to increase the level of production and sales of domestic agriculture products, and our aim was to stimulate a sustainable agricultural economy, significantly improving food security and promoting consumer access to healthy and well-regulated food. Next slide, please. So AgroPark had two development phases. The first phase, which was the opening of AgroPark in May 2023. And at the beginning, it offered trading and storage facilities around 6,000 meters square and an open daily trading area with 2,000 meters square. And it had a parking space with 6,000 meters square and with 300 parking spots. And it had businesses and employment around 60 units and 100 daily market units. Then at the second phase, next slide, please, we have expanded the trading area, and this was the full phase. So after the second phase, we had the full phase, which was the expanding trading area. About it went to 2,000 meter to 20,000 meters square, and an open daily trading area of 4,000 meters square. And we increased also the parking spaces to 600 spots, and we accommodated the AgroPark accommodated at the end 20 businesses operators and 200 local farmers traders. Next slides, please. But what are the products that are sold at the AgroPark? And they are important. So we have a diversity of food that is taken at AgroPark, and it has fruits and vegetables. And in this way, we support the local farmers and also promote the fresh seasonal produce. We have dried foods and exotic fruits, diversifying the market offerings and also attracting a broader range of consumers. We have meat and dairy products, and also the processed foods, which are value-added products that support local businesses. Next slide, please. But how is organized the market and the community impact? So we have wholesale trading, which is available from Monday to Saturday, and it opens from 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. And it is available also for families that can go and buy they can buy food for their family, but also it is available for different businesses that they go and buy for days or for weeks food at the AgroPark. Then we have the retail trading and thematic fairs that are organized from Saturday to Sunday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And also we have community engagement and support for local farmers. We organize fairs and we organize activities not only during the Saturday and Sundays, but sometimes also during weeks. For example, collaborating also with schools by taking children in the AgroPark, and so they can visit the local products and they can have an idea of how the market works and which are the fresh products and the diversity of food at the AgroPark. Next slide, please. Which are the benefits of AgroPark? So we enhance the agriculture production by working also with the local farmers. We have a economic sustainability. We improve the food security, support for local farmers. We give support for local farmers, consumer access to healthy food, community engagement, infrastructure development, and also sustainable practices, which all of these align with the FoodTrails politics. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the AgroPark aims to create a robust and sustainable agriculture economy by enhancing local food production, supporting farmers, and ensuring the consumer access to healthy and high-quality products. And this initiative significantly contributes to food security, economic sustainability, and community engagement in Tirana. Next slide, please. But with all this, it's not ended the AgroPark action plan. We have to make some next steps in order to improve the AgroPark. And for example, as next step is to expand the infrastructure and facilities. for further expand the trading and storage facilities to accommodate more farmers and traders, and also to develop additional parking spaces in order to manage the growing number of visitors and traders. Another step is to improve the market accessibility by improving the public transport links to Agropark. We already have some public transport, but we will need to make more public transport in order to have more people coming to Agropark and to facilitate the access for consumers and also for traders, and also to develop online platforms and mobile apps to enable virtual trading also, like real-time updates and better coordination among the traders. So it can be useful not only for the public, but also useful among traders. We would like to boost marketing and promotion, which is important to launch target marketing campaigns to attract more consumers and raise awareness about the benefits of buying local, and also to organize regular events such as food festivals or cooking demonstrations in order to engage the community and promote local products. Another step that we can make better is to foster partnership and collaboration. For example, we have to make partners with local restaurants, hotels, and retails in order to create a steady demand for products from the Agropark. And also important is the support from government and NGOs. So we would seek for support for government agencies or non-governmental organizations also for funding, resourcing, and policy advocacy. We have to improve data collection and analysis. We have to conduct regular market research in order to understand what consumer preferences are and the emerging trends. And also it would be very useful to use the data analytics to optimize operations and manage inventory and forecast demand more accurately. We have to enhance the consumer experience. We have to implement maybe a feedback mechanism to gather input from our consumers and traders in order to improve the quality of the services, and also add amenities such as reset areas or food courts or maybe children care facilities in order to enhance the shopping experience. And also, it is important to monitor and evaluate the progress. So we have to establish a clear performance metrics to regularly assess the impact of the effectiveness of Agropark, and also to use this feedback and data to make informed decisions and continuously improve operations and services. So by implementing, let's say, these next steps, Agropark can further enhance its role and can be as a vital hub for local agriculture, but also can improve economic sustainability and continue to benefit the community at large. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Fiona, and also to Leah for sharing a bit some of the work that you've done as part of the FoodTrails project. It's really impressive what the cities have been able to do with the project. And so I would like to invite everyone to share some questions in the chat if you have any, or rather in the Q&A function on Zoom. You can find it at the bottom of your screen. But in the meantime, I have a few questions for the three of you in the 20 minutes that we have left. Maybe going back to the beginning of the discussion with Frederike, the title of the webinar was around local food and quality food, but your research is maybe going a little bit beyond that. And maybe could you explain a bit, there are these different concepts like regional food systems or urban-rural systems. Do you want to explain a bit what we mean by these different terms and if there's any common ambition between them? You're still muted, Frederike?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's it's quite a difficult question because there's no proper definition for local or rural. What consists a local food system or a regional food system? To me, let's say local food systems or regional food systems are more or less a contract trend against globalized food systems, where the food comes from long distances. So, you know, again, connecting to local and short travel distances for your food is mostly connected to geographical locations of producers and consumers. But it can also refer to market arrangements, for example, farmers selling directly to consumers via short supply chains. If your question about the ambitions, is there a common ambition between these kinds of movements? I don't think so. Even if I look at initiatives here in the Netherlands, there's all these variations. There's a great diversity of types of initiatives. Some focus on more the social aspects, some focus more on the ecological aspects, like greening cities for climate resilience, for example, and some are purely economically driven. So like farmers that start an outlet for products of their farm or at their farm even, or they start processing activities, for example, making cheese from their milk and then selling that locally. So there's not, to me, apart from the initiatives that have been presented from Grenoble and Tirana, where government is taking a great role, a leading role in organizing these initiatives together, and also making sure that the social, ecological, and economic aspects are integrated into different types of activities. But other than that, the bottom-up movements very often have very different goals and ambitions. So the next step, a challenge would be to try to organize that a little bit more, to make interconnections between the different initiatives and see if there's any common ambition that they could work on together. But so far, the great variety is also a very good point.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. Maybe actually this leads me to another question, maybe more for Leah and Fiona. As Frederike said, there are all these different reasons, let's say, to work more on localizing food systems, whether it's more from a social angle or economic or environmental angle. I'm curious to hear from you. Maybe it was at the stage where you did the initial assessment of the food system to understand what was really the driver to start working on the actions that you did.
So before creating, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So before creating AgroPark, it was a non-regulated, let's say, trading of the products, and it was very difficult for consumers to know where to find this product and where to find that other. So they have to go around all Tirana to find a certain product in a certain place and another one in a certain one. So it came up the idea that maybe we have to centralize a market where we know where the products are taken from, and we know the quality of the products, and also we make this food. We have these products, and we create food security by selling these products in a controlled way, let's say. And also we can make this part also available not only for families but also for businesses, and in this way, with this approach, we have more sustainable food chain and also more food security, and people can find everything in this market, and also they can come in this market not only to buy food but also to enjoy the food that they buy, and also to enjoy the activities that AgroParks offers. Because now, for example, we are creating also a children space in the AgroPark, so families that they come there, they can also entertain their children while they are doing the market, the shopping, let's say, for the food. So all before the agro park was there, so it was more difficult for people to find all these facilities in one place, and that's why the idea came up to have this park and to be open to wide public in order to enjoy the food and to have food security too.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Fiona. And for you, Leah, so what was behind this ambition to work on local food systems?
Well, we've been working in the metropole area. We've been working with the rural territories for years, so with the rural areas, and we've been working mostly on the production side so far. So the idea was also to work on the consumption side, so to try to create bridges between producers and citizens or professionals that would be interested um, to buy more local products and to know more about their local food system. So yeah, the idea was to raise awareness about both the fact that we need to shift towards a more sustainable diet, but also the need to create to consume more local products. So to create linkages between producers and consumers. And the idea was also that as we are working at an upper level, which is the inter-territorial food projects, all partners, they do have actions regarding agriculture, depending on their status, on their capacities and all. But agriculture is something that we've been working on a lot. And the idea was also to gather our strengths and to work all together to share common messages and to have like this big event, which is the month of food transition and which is quite a success, was really important for us to share common messages and and reach people.
Great. That's very interesting to hear. So we have two questions in the Q&A. The first one is, do you know of initiatives to promote short food supply chains in vulnerable neighborhoods that have been successful and have overcome some of the challenges mentioned? So here the question is from someone in Barcelona, the metropolitan area of Barcelona. They want to implement pilots for food system transformation in neighborhoods, and they would like to hear more about promising initiatives that could be replicated. I don't know if either of you have something to share about this.
Maybe just a few words about initiatives that are still ongoing. They are not finished yet, especially in cities, in French cities such as Grenoble, which is one of the 49 cities of Grenoble Métropole. There are actually initiatives ongoing regarding solidarity and how to make sure that all people have access to quality food. So yeah, they have been working on it to define how they could create a better balance between all citizens. And we also, most of the initiatives that are ongoing and that are really concrete, because this is something that is still ongoing, still in the process. But we have plenty of private actors working on this topic. So for example, we do have like groceries where people with a few more vulnerable people can go, and also other citizens. So there are prices that are different depending on how much you earn, and the idea is to make sure that everyone has access to the same offer and will pay differently depending on their means. So this is, for example, one of the initiatives that is very successful here. But there are plenty of others. This can be the same idea, but in farmers markets, for example. But there are, let's say, lots of actors offering this kind of services, and the idea is to coordinate them. So, for example, it's part of the work done in Grenoble, where they are trying to create coordination within the food system on this specific topic, to make sure all stakeholders, they work together. So I'm not sure I answered all your questions, but if you want to
No, I think that's a great start. Also, what you say just reminds me of something that we've also heard someone from Birmingham also say that because they have very high rates of food poverty in the city, and the way that the city of Birmingham sees it is not that they themselves will do all of the work, but they really want to help all of the civil society organizations and NGOs that are doing a fantastic job indeed in helping vulnerable neighborhoods. So that's really indeed, like you said, Leah, this role of coordination. But maybe to the person who asked the question, maybe also check out what Birmingham is doing on this. I don't know, Fiona or Frederike, if you also want to add something.
Yes, there are, for example, also here some kind of NGOs that they work also with Agropark too, and also with other food local businesses in Tirana, for example, that they, regarding the food wasting, for example, food that is not sold during all the day, or food that might be left apart in some bars or restaurants. These NGOs, they provide it for vulnerable people or different kind of agencies, for example, the elderly agencies that they take care for the elder people, or also for the children that are abandoned and they are living in houses that they take care of these children. So these organizations, they try to collect the food from these local markets, or also from the agropark when they are in advance, and supply these kind of vulnerable people. But there are not too many. There are just two organizations that they help with this, and not in all the in many vulnerable peoples. Just in 2 or 3 centers that they have vulnerable people.
From the Netherlands, I work at a university. We have a lot of students, and students usually can do a lot of work in related to their assignments that they have to do. We had one city nearby in the province of Brabant, in the south of the Netherlands, where students did a big inventory in a specific area in the city where food poverty was very common, and other issues related to food were there. And they did an inventory of what the issues were, what the eating habits were, what the cultural diversity of eating habits were. And with the information, with the municipality, we organized food cooking events where people themselves started cooking with all the diversity in cultural backgrounds and so on. It was really fascinating what happens. And during the food and during the eating, things were discussed, and challenges were discussed, and also solutions were brought up by the groups, which were then taken up by the municipality. So food in itself is a very connected thing. It's like a very social event to eat together or to cook together, and that can also be used for specific approaches. And we've done it several times now, and it's really every time really inspiring and good to connect through the food with people.
Yeah, thanks very much, Frederike. And maybe before closing, a last question to Fiona. You touched upon a bit the question of food waste at the Agropark, about what you do with the food waste to redistribute it to vulnerable families. But what about managing the food waste, and especially preventing food waste in the food in the first place? Is that something that you also work on?
Well, actually, it's not one of my sectors that I work, but my colleagues, they work on this part, and we are trying, for example, to make meetings also with the farmers and also with other stakeholders in order to provide as less as possible the food wasting. And for example, we had made like also a book where we promote. we write also like different diets, let's say, for the consumers, not for the farmers, how they can manage the food and how they can put the food in different recipes in order not to waste the food. But this was most for the consumers, not for the farmers. But I know that there is a sector that they take care of the food wasting with the farmers, how they can manage better the production and the selling.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot for that, for being able to answer that question. We're already reaching the end of the webinar. It was a bit short, but I hope that it was useful to everyone here who was attending. Before closing, I just want to again share maybe in the chat the calendar of the episode, or you can just go back in the chat. The link is there at the top, because we still have 2 webinars to go. So there's one next Tuesday, which will be about the financing of cities, and one also on the 18th of June, which will be our final webinar. And as a reminder, you can also watch all of the previous episodes on the YouTube channel. The FoodTrails project is ending this year, already in a couple of months. So we will actually be, over the next few months, we will be publishing and launching a few other very interesting resources for all of you. So there will be some podcasts coming out, and also I think very relevant for all the cities here looking for a bit more guidance. We are developing also a handbook, which will kind of collect all of the very concrete learnings from the FoodTrails project over the last 4 years, and really summarize what are the key, let's say, guidelines and tips and actions for cities. So that will be the handbook for implementing urban food policies. And lastly, we also want to share another initiative that Eurocities is working on, which is another peer learning program under the Clever Food project, which is looking for 20 cities to participate. And then we will have a second call for another round of participants to share expertise in developing food policy labs and food policy councils. So the call is open right now to demonstrators who are willing to share the experience that they have. Where you can also, we will support you in hosting a short visit of other cities, and also this will also help give visibility also to your project. And you can also participate as a city yourself in another visit. So you can find all of the information here in the chat, in the last link. And the last thing I want to share is indeed the little survey that we developed, where we would really like to hear your feedback on whether you found this webinar useful. So you can also follow FoodTrails and all of the cities involved and project partners involved on social media, on LinkedIn and on Twitter, so that you don't miss any of the upcoming resources that we'll be publishing. And don't hesitate to get in touch with one of us if you have any further questions. So thanks a lot, and have a nice afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.